episode 9, huh? 9 or 10?
I don't know. I know it's not 10.
It's episode 9.
You sure?
Yeah, pretty sure.
Might be 8. I don't know.
No, I think it's 9.
You think it's 9?
Yeah, I think like 7 of them were plumbing.
Eh?
No, it's actually only 4 episodes were about plumbing. So we're at episode 9.
Okay.
Yeah. Chit chat with Kevin and Derek.
I'm Kevin and Derek.
Yeah. Winston, the director, he's behind the camera,
Yeah.
licking his paws. He charged the battery this time, so the battery's fully charged. Oh, let me put this on my watch. The timer. Where is it? Not that one. This one. 29 minutes.
Hey, what's we got?
Alright, so we're going to talk about filtration.
Are we?
Yeah. You're the one who called me yesterday. What are we going to talk about?
Well, yeah, you gotta know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, well, you know what? You've got your system, You did all your plumbing.
Thank God that. Yeah, got it all
that
done. Yeah.
So now it's about, we'll talk about filtration for freshwater and saltwater.
Okay.
Yeah. So I brought from downstairs. Like the basement is just full of junk, of aquarium junk. Like seriously, if you ever go downstairs, like it's the same size as up here, double that with the fresh side and the salt side.
Yep.
And it's full of junk.
There's a
like
lot of
when we
stuff
move,
down there.
it's just gonna be. What did we save this for? What did we save this? We got so many skimmer bodies, and UVs and other stuff. The old tanks. It's just it's jam packed downstairs. So I brought some of the equipment that either doesn't work anymore or we just.
Well, actually, this one here works. This is my old one I just threw downstairs.
No, that came from buddy Sean, who closed his system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you probably borrowed it though, but yeah.
No, I have another one down there. I have another old one down there that I don't use anymore.
Oh, well, I didn't see that one. It's probably behind under the junk. So, difference between filtration for saltwater and freshwater is totally different.
Correct.
Totally different. Now, for saltwater, we use a protein skimmer, and you can't use that in freshwater.
No.
No.
No, actually, I seen a post on one of the forums there. Somebody had one and tried to use it on fresh water, and he said it didn't work.
Well, no, because it doesn't have the salt. It's not gonna.
Right.
It's not gonna foam. It's not gonna make all these bubbles in the chamber, right? So.
Right. So, what exactly the principle of a skimmer though? Like if you walk along the beach and you see all that foam that's washing up.
Yeah,
on the
actually,
beach.
I took a video of that. For us, we understand that.
Yeah.
Because we're from the East Coast.
Right.
So anybody who's close to the coast will understand what we're talking about.
Right. Well, what happens is with the wave action, it puts micro bubbles into the waves as they do, and what happens is that foam is actually what we take out in our skimmer. Yeah, that's skim. That's
It goes on the sand bed.
Yep.
And it gets filtered through there, right?
Yep.
Not filtered, but anyways, because the substrate, the sand will absorb it.
And that's the principle of a skimmer. I mean,
It is, yeah. It's not complicated.
No.
It's just a pump that draws water and air. You know what I mean? This is a protein skimmer. So it's kind of dirty. Don't mind this. But this is the pump is inside. Takes intake water, and this is the air hose with a silencer right here, and it creates all these bubbles in this chamber. And all the bubbles collect fish waste.
You take the impurities out of the water.
Yeah. That's all it is, and it goes in this collection cup, right?
Right.
So to me, that's the main difference between like trying to run a freshwater filter on a saltwater, which is for me is a no-no.
Right.
Like seriously, no-no. Just
biggest-
don't do it. Some people do it.
The hang-on backs and the canister filters are what we use in fresh.
Yeah.
And what happens is when you have the media in here, your sponges, they collect.
They collect the skim.
Right.
Or whatever.
No.
The dirty water.
Right. They collect all the poop and the old food, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that just turns into nitrates and phosphates.
Yes.
Right. So you're fighting yourself when you're put sponges in.
Especially if you're lazy. Like if you take those sponges out every 2 days and clean them, okay, yeah, I'll give you 50 points on that instead of 100. But a protein skimmer, what happens is that all the skim goes in this collection cup.
Right.
So it's not touching the water column anymore. Whereas canister filter or a hang-on back filter, water still goes through all that shit.
Right.
Even though it catches it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I always explain people, a protein skimmer or filtration in your tank is the toilet of your house.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you don't run a protein skimmer in a saltwater tank, it's like not having a toilet in your house. After a while, your house is gonna stink because everybody's doing their job in a room somewhere.
Right.
Okay. Whereas this, yeah, it's kind of like the same thing, but you're cleaning it all the time.
Right.
And with a protein skimmer, you just flush it down. You know, you take the collection cup and flush it down.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So it's because of it's essentially because of the sponges and stuff like that's in this that are catching all of the food waste and everything else that's causing nitrates and phosphates.
Yes.
You can use this stuff on salt water. You just got to take all the stuff out.
What's the point? Might as well put it just power head.
Right. So
yeah.
the other
so
thing,
you're creating more flow. Okay. Whoopee whoopee doo whoopee doo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why we don't use or recommend using.
We don't use
this
these hang-on back filters on salt water or these canister filters on salt water. Now, if you really want to use your canister filter, we usually tell people just put rubble rock in there and
use it like a little refugium.
Use it like a little refugium.
But we'll talk about refugiums on another day. But
yeah, but
it's a reason.
To be honest, like just keep the canister filter and the HOB away from your saltwater tank.
Yeah. Start up with fresh water and then come see us and we'll help you fill that up too.
Yeah. But anyways, that's the thing about filtration. And like for freshwater, like these filtration, like you need to clean those sponges often.
Yeah.
You need to change your media in there all the time. I'm not a fan of hang-on back filters and canister filters. And the reason for that, like a hang-on back filter, is hanging behind the tank. That's why we call it a hang-on back, on the back of the tank. So the pump is here. So if something goes wrong here, you're getting water on the floor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Same thing as the canister filter. How many people we've talked to that their canister filter started leaking on them?
Yeah.
You know, you're ruining your floor. Like our house right now, we ruin our floor with a water cooler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a big job. We're replacing the whole flooring.
Yeah.
But you know, to me, that's why I prefer like filtration, having a sump even for fresh water, and having like all your equipment inside the tank.
Yeah. And when we talk about nitrates and phosphates, for an example, there's different products that you can put into the water that removes them.
Yeah.
Well, they need the skimmer.
The skimmer needs to remove it. Yeah. So if
Right.
you're going to use no-pox or anything like that, anything that's going to bond that nitrates and phosphate, it needs to get removed.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's
And these don't remove it.
They don't remove
You
it.
have to utilize the skimmer to actually utilize those products. If you're using something with the hang-on back and you're using no-pox, you're wasting your money because it doesn't work.
No.
You need the skimmer.
No, you'll get that slime,
Right.
but it's not going to be removed.
Right.
You need that skimmer that's actually going to pull it out
Yeah.
and put it in a collection cup. Because with the hang-on back filter or whatever, everything's just staying in there. You're just introducing it back into the tank.
Yeah. So that's kind of why they're.
Yeah, because we had some people that came in. Actually, I had some people last weekend that came in from St. John, and I'm sorry, people from St. John, but listen, she came in. She bought a saltwater setup, and it's set up for freshwater. It's not made for saltwater.
Yeah.
So we're going back and forth, and I'm like trying to explain to her like you need a protein skimmer.
Yeah.
I don't know why they sold you a setup without a protein skimmer. They sent her a hang-on back filter. Like what do you mean they sent you? Anyways, it's just you can't use that on. It's not that you can't. 99% of the time you should.
Yeah.
You should.
It's just saltwater and freshwater are two different setups. You can't use,
No, you can't.
There are different principles of how the water gets cleaned.
Yeah.
So now, if you have a small tank, like I'm talking small, you can do water changes.
Oh,
and you can go.
Yeah,
but it has to be a small tank.
I gotta argue with that, but yeah,
well,
I mean you can try to get away with it with doing all these water changes for a saltwater tank, not running a skimmer, but it's just gonna end up costing you so much money in salt that you would have paid that skimmer off 100 times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a skimmer cup is easier to do than a water change, right?
Yeah.
And what happens with the water change? People get lazy after a while. They start skipping water changes, and then things go sour for them.
Yeah.
So, no.
You like the skimmer on everything.
I like the skimmer. Well, it's a toilet.
I know.
Don't put a toilet in your house. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's Yeah. And there's other filtration for saltwater you can use, like reactors. Like you put some certain media. But the media that you put in there is for a purpose. Either to remove phosphates, that's going to bond it, then you got to change it.
Yeah.
But a protein skimmer is a must.
Yeah.
Is a must, is a must, is a must, is a must.
Yep. All right. Did we beat that one to death or what?
I think we did.
All right.
So, if you have a saltwater tank, don't use these suckers. Plain and simple. Don't use them. And somebody tells you, oh yeah, you'll be fine. No. Just stay away from that. Come and call Derek and say, bro, somebody told me I can use this. No.
No.
Use a protein skimmer.
And the biggest reason is the sponges is just going to add phosphate and nitrate to your tank. You're going to get hair algae. You're going to get upset. The tank's going to be ugly, and you're going to quit.
And you're going to quit. And we don't want you to quit.
No.
And that's the reason why we make this show, and this is the reason why I opened this store.
Right.
Is I don't want people to quit.
Yep. And for the
It's
cost,
a beautiful hobby.
For the cost of and you don't need a sound like we have.
Yeah, we got like the tunes, whatever you name it. Yeah. See, same thing. Like there is some skimmers out there. There's some skimmers out there that are hang on backs.
Yep.
And I'm still not a fan because if something happens, what happens? They start leaking on you.
These are in tank though.
Yeah, these are in tank. So the tons, like you have a small tank, a small tank like a 20 gallon to, I think this says up to 60 gallons. You get one of these little tunsies.
Yeah.
They're great. They'll last you forever. It's German made.
Yep.
Yeah.
And all you do to clean it is you pop that little cup off and away you go.
And away you go. It's pommade sand.
Yep.
So, yeah, you gotta use a skin. I'm done with that.
All right. What's next on the topic?
Next on the topic is for saltwater and fish of the week instead of fish of the week. We're going to talk about Acroporas.
All right. You talk about Acroporas, and I'm going to sit here and think about fish because I'm not a coral guy. I'm a fish guy.
He's a fish guy. I'm a coral guy.
You go talk about your sticks and stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know when I look at my tank, I look at the corals. I don't look at the fish. But you're the opposite. When you look at your tank, you look at the fish. But I'm looking at my corals, seeing how they're growing and all that. So,
all right.
Acroporas, you know what? That is, how can I say that? Acroporas are the cremes of the cremes. They're not for novice Aquarius.
So tell me the parameters that I want to have if I have these in my tank.
You need strong lighting, strong flow. You need good calcium, good alkalinity. That's the bottom line.
Nitrates, phosphates, what, 0 or damn close to?
Well, I hate saying that because some people are able to. You're not get the coloration. That's the thing. You're not going to get the coloration like the acro is going to show if your phosphates are high and the nitrates are high. If you have your phosphates low and your nitrates low, you'll have more coloration. But you have a big chance of having a little crash in your tank because you're depleting. You're removing a lot of stuff. So if you end up having a tank that's 0,0, you're starving the coral to death.
Okay. But you're talking what, 0.5 phosphate?
Yeah, but I like to keep it below 10. Plain and simple, like phosphate below 0.10, below 10 in
so
nitrates.
0.09, 0.05.
Yeah, like don't go below 0.02 in phosphates. Because you're going to start asking for trouble. You know what I mean? And you can't go down or high fast.
Yeah.
Because that's going to make a negative effect. Like anything in this hobby, saltwater, fresh, everything needs to be slow. It's hard to explain people. We had a customer that just started a tank. He had his cycle was finished, and I told him, I said, let's wait another week. No, he decided to drive down to St. John and go buy a couple clowns, and you're jumping the gun. You shouldn't be doing that. But we tried to explain to him. I could have sold him some fish. I could have sold him whatever. But I said no.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the topic though. Acroporas.
Yeah, Acroporas.
Yeah. So Acroporas, they are. When you start getting into SPS, most people they start doing with Montes and bird's nest, and they start to venture onto the Acroporas. And the Acroporas, like you said, you need good lighting. You cannot be cheap with Acroporas. You cannot be cheap with lighting. You cannot be cheap with flow and stuff like that. You need to have that good flow, that good lighting, and a good protein skimmer.
They're found out on reef crests is why. They're actually out, these corals.
Yeah, well, there's a whole whack of different types of Acroporas. Like seriously, there's like I don't know how many different types, but there's shallow water, there's deep water. So some of them demand more lighting than others, and so you need to do your research, like we said
Yeah.
on one of our first shows, is you need to do your research. When you go to buy an Acropora from a store or online, you need to find out what kind of Acropora is it. Is it tenuous? Is it, yeah. So you need to find out what kind of Acropora it is. Like a lot of people, like in the U.S. and all that, they're just naming stuff like crazy, but you don't know what kind of Acropora it is. You know what I mean? And some of them, like some of the corals where they get low tides and stuff, like they're exposed to the air for a long time, for like 5-6 hours, right? Like you go down to Fiji and stuff like that, just like us. They got tidal, right?
Yeah.
So they got low tides and high tides. So some of these acros are poof right out in the air. Yeah, but some of like the deep water acros, you try to frag them and you leave them out of the water for too long, they're goners.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you need to be almost, you gotta cut it, put the glue on the water, put them in the water. Like it's a rush, because if not, it's just gonna go negative on you.
Oh,
They just
really?
they cannot tolerate being out of the water too long. But some of the acros you're fine, because they're used to being out of the water because of the tides, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, because you'll see, like if you ever Google it you'll see like some beach, like not beaches, but some of the ocean at low tide, like all these corals are out of the water, and you're like, how does this survive?
Are you going to pop a picture up on the video?
Yeah, I'll pop a picture. Yeah, that's what I do. I usually want to edit, I just add videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But if you want to venture into the Acroporas, it's almost for experts only. So you need to understand your water quality and all that kind of stuff. They won't tolerate any like rust in the water, anything like that. It's just it's a big challenge.
Yeah.
But if you're able to keep Acroporas, yes, you know what I mean. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try those because I got so many fish in my tank.
Well, it's not the fish. I mean, it's because of phosphates and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you get the proper lighting, you've got the flow, and you're running Ecotank. It wouldn't be a problem. It's just stop feeding so much.
Yeah. Well, right now I'm at, I think my phosphate's like 0.25 or something right now.
It's not so bad. Like stags are an Acropora. You could go with stags. They're the easier of the Acroporas, right?
Yeah.
So there's some Acroporas that can tolerate more than others, like any other coral. The same thing, but the Acroporas, like when someone comes in here, say, "Oh, I like to get a red planet." Okay, are you familiar with water quality? Like you need to test your water all the time. You need to make sure you're dosing.
And we'll talk about this later on, but
Custom
your LPS and then your softies, they're much more forgiving.
Much more forgiving than SPS.
Yeah.
But some of the SPS are more forgiving than the acros. Like I find like the Acroporas do not. They're the ones that just will not tolerate. And there's different types of acros, where like the stags, you got these long branches. You know what I mean? There's some like F-flows. They're more like a plating Acropora.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Same thing like the red planet is more like a kind of like a plating, more like a bush kind of acro, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you get so much coloration. You can get so much different colorations in acro, and that's why people are going for acros. They just want to get that nice coloration, you know, like the fox flame or red planet or the Garth Bunzai and all these different types of acros. People are just trying to hunt to get that coloration pop.
Well,
all right, so let's talk about freshwater.
Let's talk about
Fish of the
freshwater.
week.
Fish, and we're doing
Harlequin Rasboras.
Harlequin Rasboras. Okay. They're easy.
This is your go.
Yeah, they're an easy fish to keep. They don't get very big. They only get about 2 inches or so.
Okay.
But they're a shoaling fish, so they're a lot like other fish, like the tetras, for example, where they want to be in a small group. So you'd want a 10-gallon or bigger. It's really what you need for these guys, because you want to get a small group. If you just get 1 or 2, then they'll hide.
Well, yeah, because they feel threatened. That's the thing about small fish. They prefer being in a group,
right?
Because they look big when they're a group.
Exactly, and
right?
and so safety in numbers, right?
Yeah.
Because they're on the bottom of the food chain. Anything that gets 2 inches long is going to be eaten by something that's 4 inches long, right? So, so that's kind of why you do it. When people kind of talk about that, it's I want to bring up a point about we try, like, for 2 fish. like per gallon. So if you have like a 10-gallon tank,
The rule of thumb.
the rule of thumb, yeah, the rule of thumb is like for small fish, shoaling fish, like two fish per gallon. So if you have a 10-gallon tank, then you can put 5.
Okay.
Right, and 5 is basically the smallest number I would go, because that's enough for a small shoal. So as you get bigger tanks, then you can put like a bigger shoal. So the bigger the shoal, the more more dramatic it's going to be, right? Because they're all going to move together. They're all going to.
Yeah, it's fun to watch though.
Yeah.
Like I really enjoy like watching like fish schooling together.
Yeah.
They kind of follow each other. Same thing like the birds when you go outside and you
Yeah.
see a school of birds flying and making all these patterns.
It's
pretty cool.
it's kind of I kind of like it when they're for sale in our tanks.
Yeah, because we get a shitload of them.
Yeah, and they're all the whole tank's like going. It's kind of neat, right?
Yeah, because
Like,
they'll go in one corner and they swim around the plastic plants and
Yeah.
because they
It looks sharp. But anyway, so you could try to get as many as you can to make a shoal. But like I said, two per gallon is a good rule of thumb to go by, and that's pretty much for any of the smaller, like the tetras, like the neons and things like that. It just helps keep a good enough group together. And you don't want to overdo it in a small tank either, right? Because then
because then you buy a load.
yeah, you buy a load, and then you're thinking, well, all I got in there is Rasboras. You know what I mean? So you don't have any other fish other than this one school, right? So I mean, it's kind of a balance, but then they're easy fish. They'll pretty much eat flake, frozen. They'll eat anything pretty much you put in the tank. That's just kind of the way they are.
Okay.
But they're a pretty fish. They're hardy. They're good for beginners, and they're good for experienced.
Well, you know what? I just find like in freshwater, there's so many people with smaller tanks.
Yeah.
Compared to saltwater people where they go into the big tank.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of people that come into the fresh side that say, you know, what size of tank you got? I got a 5-gallon or I got a 10-gallon, right?
Right.
So there's a lot more 5 gallons and 10 gallons out there than the 120 gallons or the 180 gallons.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So they're a good beginner fish. Smaller tank, they'll go into it. 10-gallon. You know, you can get 5 of them in there, and that's a nice little group.
cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So what else we got?
Product of the week, actually frozen food.
Oh, you're doing frozen food.
Yeah, I'm gonna do frozen food.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, let's.
What do you got for frozen food?
Oh, I got some mysis and plankton. Now you can use both. I mean, I'll be back for the mic.
Well, I'm hungry. What? Got anything real good over there, or any pizza? Or?
You know, like for saltwater. Ouch, that hurt. For saltwater, the most popular is actually mysis.
Yeah.
Mysis is the most popular that we use. This is Gamma Blister, and that's what I've been selling lately. But you see, mysis is very popular. Red plankton, I really prefer red plankton compared to mysis for saltwater tanks. You can use both of these for freshwater. Freshwater people are stuck on bloodworms and brine shrimp. This is brine shrimp here. I use this for straw use. We don't use it as often. Caitlin uses it more for the fresh side, but for saltwater, yeah. And there's also like other frozen food out there like LRS and Rogers, which is just a mix of everything, right?
Yeah. We had LRS here. We should try to get that back in stock.
No, I didn't get along with the supplier. It was, I wasn't. You know what? I'm a very loyal guy to store, like to my suppliers and stuff like that. And if you stab me in the back, I'm not going to support your product anymore. So I just stopped ordering LRS. I'm trying to bring in Rogers. That's what I'm trying to do. Is bring in Rogers.
What's really nice about the plankton, when I put it in my tank, my cardinals go right out.
Yeah,
It's
well,
fun to watch them.
plankton is smaller than the mysis, right?
Yeah.
So if you have small fish, such as like the Harlequin Rasboras, or your clownfish, anything that's small, they'll love it. Excuse me, Antius.
Yeah.
Because you know Antius, they to get them to eat, you got to go frozen.
Yep.
Because they're carnivore and they look at flakes and pellets and they're like, what's that?
Yeah. So
they prefer really the frozen stuff. But for me as a store, that's what I use the most is that. And you know, like the other stuff like LRS and Rogers, it's good stuff. Don't get me wrong, it's expensive too.
And you can make your own. Like you can
Well,
do,
especially
you can,
people like us that went on. We live on the East Coast. You know what I mean? When it's lobster season here, I'll cook my lobster and I'll just save the shells, all that stuff that's in there.
Yep.
I'll throw it in a bucket of water and I'll chuck them in my tank, and like the corals just go crazy.
Yeah.
So like people from East Coast here, we're able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, just
But you can
we
still-
got the mom and pops little seafood shops on beside the water that we can go there and buy a bunch of stuff and chop it up and put it in a blender. That's all LRS is. That's
Yep.
all, you know, they probably buy the product from us, to be honest. You know what I mean?
But yeah, so you can go and buy like at the grocery store your seafood medley or whatever the hell they call it. But yeah, you can blend that up and make your own and throw some.
Get some ice cube trays or whatever, and
you can make your own. But
Make your own.
yeah, make sure you don't use
scallops are. They create a lot of phosphates. There's certain product you need to be careful with.
Yeah.
Still, you know, you can still add some in there, but not as much. Yeah.
And so to make sure you don't use the blender, make sure you get your own blender for this.
Yeah, get your own blender for
because your significant other is going to
kill you
if you use your household blender.
Yeah.
So make sure you get a different blender and put it downstairs in your fish room.
Well, I used to do a phytoplankton in Roderford, and that's how I started. I started breeding clownfish. So, and the phytoplankton stuff like that, it's easy. It'll crash easy on you. So, you had to have a reservoir of it. So my fridge would have pop bottles of phytoplankton in there. My wife was just vivid about it. It's like, what is these green bottles of water doing in my fridge? I'm doing the groceries and I need to put stuff in there. Anyways, yeah. So same thing, like your frozen food, you know, you try to keep that away from the kids and stuff like that.
Yeah, so put that back in the freezer before it thaws.
Yeah, before it thaws out.
It's a pretty warm day here, Moncton. We don't.
Yeah, I'm in my shorts.
We got the last couple of days our bonuses in Moncton here. It's been a little on the rainy side, the Maritimes. New Brunswick anyway. No, it's been like in Halifax. Haven't been allowed to go down for over a year and a half.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so what else we got going? Frozen food, and then what we're doing?
Pay to learn.
Oh, what are we learning today?
Spontaneous purchases.
Oh,
I think that's a good one, to be honest.
yeah, that's a big pay to learn.
That's a big pay to learn right there.
Because you're spending your money and you buy something that.
Without doing any research, anything at all. You're just showing up to the store.
Yeah.
Say, you know what? I'm gonna buy this and I'm gonna buy that.
Yeah.
Then you bring it to your tank and it's not compatible for your tank or your lighting or whatever. So you need to be careful with these spontaneous purchases.
Yeah, you should never. Yeah.
Stores love it.
Yeah,
Stores love it.
but I mean,
because you're spending your money.
There are so many websites out there right now with like information about fish. I mean.
Yeah,
you
well,
get
the biggest mistake is people going out there and buying fish. Like how many times we've had people in here and they say, I want to buy a fish from my other half.
Yeah.
You're better off buying a gift card than
yeah.
buying him the fish, because you're going to buy him the fish and he's doesn't really want to put that in his tank because he may not cooperate with his other tank mates.
Exactly.
So that's the biggest mistake that people do is they just, oh, you know what, I want to put that Harlequin tusk in my tank.
There's nothing wrong with putting a Harlequin tusk in your
Yeah,
tank.
and then he's going to eat everything. It's just,
If you know, I mean, like if.
But you're doing your research. But
Yeah.
these people say, "Oh no, I really like that colored up fish. I'm going to purchase that."
Well, then
They make that mistake.
Yeah, well then you lost all your snails, all your hermits, all your shrimp, and all.
Yeah, it's like the hogfish, same thing.
Yeah, you can't put it in your tank without knowing what's gonna, and you know, and people buy 6-line wraps. I mean, 6-line wraps, they get a bad rap because they got a bad rap. They're great when they're small. They take out parasites and all that.
Yes, but
But when they get adults, when they get older, they turn into jerks.
Well, they will not attack a fish. They'll just be in his face all the time. You know what I mean? I've never seen like a 6-line wrasse actually like nip at fins or anything like that. I've seen 6-line wrasse like always going around the manor and just being a pain in the ass. Just, that's all. Yeah. But you know what? I love a 6-line wrasse because they're busy. They're just going everywhere.
They take parasites out. They do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, but they're always moving around. They're not hiding.
But the thing is, you have to have fish that goes along with him.
Yeah.
Like you can't put in like
Well, it can, not to go along with him. It's actually the food source. So if you really want a mandarin that eats Tisbee pods all the time,
Yeah.
well, the 6-line wrasse is going to beat him to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then your mandarin's going to end up starving after a while because
Yeah.
the wrasse is eating. Anyways, let's get back to spontaneous purchasing.
Well, that's what we're talking about. Like, if you spontaneous, like if you come in and buy a damsel, it's great if you got a bunch of damsels in your tank. But if
They're asses.
But if you have firefish and all these other docile fish,
Yeah.
and you throw in a damsel, it's not going to work well.
It's not going to work well because you didn't do your research, which you should have. I've never bring damsels in here. The only time I see them in our tanks here is when people shut down, they bought them somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because I just find they're assholes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because you put them in your tank and they say, oh, all your other fish are hiding. What's going on?
Right.
You know what I mean?
So yeah, so like spontaneous buys, I mean the fish might look really nice, but you need to know how that fish is going to interact with your other fish in your tank.
Mm-hmm.
And down the road, I mean, if you're thinking about, okay, I'd like to have this fish someday, you
Yeah.
know, like, and then you buy something that is going to work well with it. You know what I mean? It's just, you have to do your research.
You have to do your research.
It's the same as
Yeah.
coral, it's anything, right?
Even your equipment.
Yeah.
Look, go check the reviews. Go check, you know.
Yeah. Because it's just one of those things that, yeah, you're going to pay to learn. Like,
Yeah. And it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, like I had, Vincent.
Yeah.
Vincent,
That's
this is where I got this pay to learn thing, right?
I know, and
This
he's
is
paid to learn quite a few times.
He
'cause
did, yeah.
He doesn't want to listen to.
He just looks at the fish and says, I want him. I say, okay,
Yeah.
Vincent, he may chew on your zoas and your tube worms and stuff like that when he bought the copper band.
Yeah.
Anyways, he came back in here all pissed off, the fish in the bag, and he ate all. He had one of those Christmas tree worms.
Oh yes,
You know what I mean?
That's gonna go.
Oh yeah, the copper band just
Yeah.
cleaned out the worms and that thing. He was so
Yeah.
pissed. Anyways, and that's what he told me. He goes, yeah, pay to learn. I was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, pay to learn.
So yeah, exactly. So you need to know what you're putting into your tank.
And you got to be reasonable. Like if the store tells you, like, bro, like, I would not put this in your tank.
Yeah.
You should listen to the store owner or to the staff.
Yeah.
You know, he's saying, you know what? If the store owner or the staff says, you say, you know, I want to purchase this fish, and he asks you what tank mates you have in your tank.
Yeah.
That's a good store to go to.
That's a good story. Yeah.
That's a good store to go to because he's thinking about the fish. He's thinking about your wallet.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, yeah. Okay. I just stopped sack right there. But yeah, it's just spontaneous purchases. Just be careful out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Do your research before you go to the store. If you see something you like, then I'm sure if you say to the store owner, I'm going to go home and do some research, I'll come
You
back.
know what? I'll be back. Yeah, can you put it on the side for me?
Yeah.
The guy says no. Go shop somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. How many times we've held stuff for people for weeks at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyways, do your research before doing that spontaneous purchase.
Or you're going to pay to learn.
Yeah. You know what? A good thing to do is, like, I used to tell that to my kids. You know, you really want that toy. Okay, I want you to turn around, walk out, see if you really need that toy.
Yeah. And most places have websites with what they have fish in stock. So you can look before you even go to the store what fish pretty much.
Yeah,
they have
most
in
stores
stock.
have a
Most
website.
stores,
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can do your research ahead of time.
Yeah. All right, so next is support your local fish store.
Yep.
So this is it. Episode number 9, all done. So support your local fish store.
These seem to go faster and faster every time we do one.
Oh, we're smart. We know what we're talking about.
I
We
wouldn't
get to
go
the
that
point.
far, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, we get to the point.
Yeah. So before you buy online,
Support local fish store.
well, support local.
Support, yeah.
Yeah.
Support,
In
yeah.